Yeah, I'm definitely ready.
All right, good evening, nerds around the world. Welcome to episode 134 of the podcast. I'm your host, Paul English, and we have a fantastic show, as always, that we're gonna get going for. But first, as always, we gotta introduce our guests, our panel, and you know them all by now. It's Chris, it's Colton, it's Mike. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Hey everyone.
Oh, nerds.
3 Days into Infinity War comes out on DVD, which no one uses anymore except me.
Hi.
All right. So our topic today, we're back to interrogations. And I figured, with so much with like NFL and NBA practice camps getting underway, it's the home stretch, it's a hot stretch in baseball. I figured it'd be a good time to get a sports-related episode up here. So today we're going to be discussing our all-time favorite sports films. So you guys know how this outline works. We quickly say the film, and then we each ask a couple questions as to why it is our favorite. So let's get this started. I'll start with Chris. What is your all-time favorite sports film?
Rocky.
Colton?
Creed.
Mike?
Field of Dreams.
And I have The Sandlot. And because someone will probably be insensitive enough to make a joke, I'll just jump ahead of it. The white guys like baseball, the black guys like boxing. Anyone want to make something about that? Anyone make a joke about that? Because I'm having trouble thinking of one.
I'm sure there's a joke out there, but we'll probably never think of it, so let's just move on.
I genuinely didn't even really realize that.
Yeah, I just realized it right before as we started. Okay, so let's jump right in. Chris, we're going to start with you. So, Colton, what's your first question?
All right, so my first question is, let me think here. Oh, yeah. What would you say this movie really appeals to you as a sports fan, or are you a sports fan?
I wouldn't use the term sports. I mean, it's rather to me as a movie fan. I think it's a story. It's just like I think what draws people to me, good sports movies can have thrive on one thing, and that's really the antagonist. I mean, it's not the antagonist, the protagonist. Rocky Balboa. Yeah, it's many things to me. I mean, he does have a good heart. I mean, he does have a good heart to him. He just, he's down. He's pretty much down on his luck. There's an amateur boxers and so forth and so on. It's really, I think it's the heart of the whole thing that Stallone poured into it. You're making us like Rocky, root for him. It's just like, as he climbs the way to the top to that finale, to his bout with Apollo Creed. It's just, I think it's the journey. It's what Stallone succeeds in is making us care about the character. I don't think I'm not sure if any sports movie could come close to that in terms of how we depict. In terms of his depiction of the protagonist. I mean, of course, he's like. He struggles. Like I said, he struggles to make the fact that he struggles so much as a small-time boxer, it's pretty much a muscle for Loan Shark. It makes you want to think. Yeah, he has a good heart, and you make it. And it's just it's how we're drawn to him. How we're drawn to him is what I think makes it work, because you want to see him succeed, because he is pretty much a good person. He deserves to succeed in life. And of course, like I said, that fight against Paul Creed, I mean, how flamboyant he is. You want to see Rocky knock the shit out of him, but even when he does it, I think the journey was much more important, than anything else. That I think that works for me. That succeeds as a film.
That makes sense. Cool.
All right, Mike.
I've often heard it said that like a hero is only as good as his villain. And Apollo Creed is the not the villain, but the antagonist of Rocky. So, what did you think of Apollo Creed in that film? I personally really liked him. What did you think of him?
You couldn't even find a better antagonist for this character than Apollo Creed. He's definitely right. Just like he's very much pompous and shows, and he's very much flamboyant and very much full of himself. And since Carl Revis, he brings that character to life. I mean, he's so reminiscent of Muhammad Ali, I suppose. Like, I am the greatest. I'll float like a butterfly, and like a bee.
That was the point, wasn't it? To make him be like Muhammad Ali or something like that.
Yes, it was.
I suppose. I mean, I suppose he's just like, yeah. He's just so bent on securing that title. He's just like, I guess the Italian stallion. It's just like that, man. It's just this unknown boxer who could possibly succeed him. He's take that title away from him. He's just like, yeah. He puts on a show. I mean, you can't help but watch him. Yeah, he pretty much is a pain in the ass, but you can't help but love him. And I also like how their relationship progressed throughout the series. Becoming from an antagonist to a friend of Rocky. Yeah, you can't find a better antagonist than someone to match against Rocky Balboa than Paul Creed.
Fair enough.
So my question is, of all the Rocky films, because there have been 7 if you count Creed, and then of course Creed 2 coming out I think later this year. What is it about the first one that you consider the best and therefore your favorite sports film? Because I'll be honest, I thought 2 was better.
I say it's the heart and it's the spirit. I mean, it's the spirit of it, the journey of it. It's just like some people will find it akin to a religious experience. I don't know. It's just it had more feeling to it. It had the acting's better, the dialogue's it's wonderful. It's just everything about it, And Stallone wrote the screenplay, so he really it's amazing how much lengths he went to so that this film can be made. It is electrifying. It celebrates the underdog about battling to beat the odds. It's an inspiring movie. That's why I like it. And I felt as the series progressed, I mean, it kind of got silly with just like the scenarios got a little bit too over the top of my taste. Rocky before, I mean, the antagonist became even more dumb and just idiotic and just he's like, I can't stand Clubber Lang. He says that I pity the fools. Oh my god! Even though with Armand Drago, who was my lead superior to Clubber Lang, he's like,
he does.
Anything he punches, he destroys.
And Rocky 5 is just a travesty. Let's
not bring that up.
Yes, but Rocky Balboa, yeah, it's not as good as the original, but it comes close. It has that, it goes back to that really feeling. It goes back to that. It goes back to that realism of the first one. It's just like, I mean, even it's not as good, but it's great at depicting Rocky after his at how he, at the point of his life, as his Rocky's career is ending, he wants to make a comeback and to make one, not really a comeback, but make one more, want to get into one more boxing match. It's just like, it's a great study of the character at that point in his life. But the first one will always, it'll always be the great one. It'll always outclass all this all the sequels that came after it.
Okay, Colton, did you have another question?
Yeah. So you talked about how the draw for Rocky was how, he's the underdog, the movie makes us really want to root for him and all that jazz. And we all know how the movie ends with him, spoiler alert, not winning the fight, but he doesn't really care because all he cared about was, going the distance. But my question to you is, what do you actually think of the fight itself, between Rocky and Apollo? Do you think it's actually just like sometimes I felt like the least memorable part of the Rocky films could sometimes be the boxing matches themselves, depending on which film you're watching. So I'm like, what do you think of the actual fight? Do you think it's really? Do you think it's exciting, or do you think it's really only remembered because Rocky didn't win in the end?
it's pretty much exciting and it's electrifying. The choreography is pretty top notch. Just I don't think it really. I'm not sure what the thing. I'm not sure to think which boxing matches are better in either this film or Raging Bull, but I think they're pretty well done. You know. I mean, you almost feel sorry for Rocky for the whole thing because the whole thing's a publicity stunt. He didn't even realize that. But yeah, I thought that was a I thought that was a well done fight. I mean, the whole match between him and Creed at the end. I thought it was. I thought they did well. I thought that was an excellent fight.
Right, cool.
Okay. Mike, did you have another question?
No, actually, Colton took mine.
Sorry.
I'm good as well. Hey. So, Chris, you're done. Colton, you're up. And, well, Chris, we'll go back to you. Where the hell did Colton go? He fucking bailed on us, you bastard!
Sorry, I didn't realize you're about to switch to me.
All right, Chris, what's your first question for Colton?
Yeah. Do you consider this movie superior, as good as the original, as Rocky, or superior to it?
That's a very good question. Part of me almost wants to consider them to be Rocky and Creed to almost be kind of a package deal in a way. And I feel like if you wanted to, you could, start with Rocky and then just skip all the sequels and go to Creed, and you'd be able to, and it would still. I see you're shaking your head there, Paul.
You can't skip fucking 2, man. I mean, Rocky finally gets the title. You can't skip that.
Okay, I guess maybe that's a bit of a jump again, but I feel like they're relatively on par with each other because I feel like Creed really, complements Rocky as a character. I almost don't want to say one is better than the other because I feel like I would happily watch them. I would happily, just bunch them together and enjoy them as equals rather than trying to judge one as being better than the other because I think they both set up what they want to do pretty well, especially like compared to some of the other Rocky sequels because while they all have their strengths and flaws, sometimes it feels like they could kind of be going against the point of the original Rocky movie depending on who you're speaking to. But I feel like Creed just feels like a good continuation of the Rocky storyline rather than trying to feel like they're engaging in a game of one-upmanship with it, so to speak.
Okay. Mike, what is your first question?
Well, I mean, like I went with Chris, the villain of, the quote-unquote villain, the antagonist of Creed is the Conlon. You don't really get too much of him, but what did you think of him as the antagonist? Or
Ricky, compared to a lot of the other Rocky antagonists throughout from the Rocky series, I think he's I kind of like how he sort of harkened back to Apollo, which was he's not a bad guy or anything like that. Well, I mean he kind of is because he had some law trouble, and so he wanted to do this last fight. So, this was kind of publicity and all that jazz, but at the end of the day, I liked how he and Adonis end the fight with respect for one another. He respects him as the future of the boxing sport, and even though they had one or two minor alterations, he never tried to needlessly antagonize him or anything like that. For the most part, he wasn't like what was Mr. T's name? It wasn't like Clubber Lang who deliberately goaded Rocky into a fight, or Drago who just effing kills Apollo in Rocky IV, and definitely a far cry from Tommy Gunn. And I don't know how Mason the Lion Dixon acts in Rocky VI, Rocky VI, since I never got around to seeing that movie. But it's wow, I can see your mouth hanging open right there, Paul. But I didn't think the Rocky series was. I didn't think Rocky VI was going to be the hit it was, so I just never got around to seeing it. And then Creed came out, and I saw that. And if it's ever on TV, or if I ever happen to see it on demand or something, I'll watch Rocky Balboa.
Why the fuck are you here? Go out, get the heavyweight collection, and watch it. I mean, seriously, I got that heavyweight set for $23. It's not that expensive. You got all 6 rounds.
You want to get knocked out, Colton? You're going to fly now.
Just go ahead and mute me. I know you want to.
I'm not going to do it, but Mike might. Or Chris, I don't know.
Nah. As long as you guys don't diss Rocky IV, I'm good.
Well, either way, I liked him. I thought Pretty Ricky was pretty cool, and I liked how he was a pretty damn intimidating boxer. You know, like he really for like a lot of the fight, he wiped the floor with Adonis, and then just with one colossal punch, almost takes him out of the match. I mean, damn. And like compared to some of the other Rocky fights when like Adonis went down, I really felt that punch actually. So I liked how they like it didn't feel over the top like the fight with what Drago did when he punched Apollo or Rocky or whatever. So yeah, I think he was a pretty solid antagonist.
Okay. So of all, and I guess in some way, like you said, this is a continuation of the Rocky saga. So I guess we can jump it in there, even though Rocky's a supporting character in the film. But of all the films in this saga, what is it about Creed that stands out to you as the best one, and therefore your favorite sports film?
What Creed that stands out to me the best? Hold up, let me think about it. All right. It's a good question. I feel like what really stands out about it compared to the others is just, well, compared to the ones after the original Rocky, I feel like what stands out is that it does feel like the story is really focused on Adonis as a character. Well, I guess you can make that argument for Rocky 2 as well, but it felt like for like the 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the ice. I heard the refrigerator in the background. It's nothing. It does that sometimes. I feel like it really puts a lot of focus back on Adonis, rather than the movie focusing heavily on building up to the boxing match and whatnot. I mean, there's still plenty of boxing and focus on the sport and training, but I was ultimately there for the story. I mean, rather than just saying boring. When are they gonna start fighting? When's the fight gonna happen? So let me tell you, I loved how it just really continues the story of Rocky, and it felt like it was there. Hold on, I'm going off on a tangent here.
Okie dokie.
Okay, yeah. I think the one thing that really stood out is that if you wanted, you could consider this to be the definitive ending of the Rocky series. Rather than thinking, okay, that was cool. I wonder if what's going to happen next or whatever. I felt like I could have sort of ended right here because I feel like they really took Rocky as far as they could go while respecting him and the long legacy he's left behind and all that jazz. And like that final shot where he and Adonis climb up the iconic steps for what we thought was going to be like one last time and look out to it and look out in the distance. That really, really struck me, and more than the most out of, I think, all the endings of the Rocky series, barring the first one, and maybe Rocky Balboa whenever I get around to seeing that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Chris, do you have another question?
Oh yeah. What did you think of? What was your take on? What did you think of the boxing sequences in this film?
I really enjoyed the boxing sequences. Like I liked how one of the earliest boxing sequences we got was shot all in one take. I really love one takes and whatnot, and you can really feel the power, the speed and power from the fights as they were going on. Like you did think, at no point did I really feel during the fights, this is pretty cool, but shouldn't somebody either be, suffering from brain damage or have passed out by now? It's like the fights were pretty realistic, I think, for the most part, at least compared to some of the other fights in the Rocky series. And like I said, one of my favorite things about the fight was in the final fight when Adonis gets his second wind and we hear the iconic Rocky theme playing behind him. I'm like, all right, someone's gonna get their ass kicked now. Of course, Adonis doesn't win, but I didn't mind that because the entire point of the fight was just him trying to prove something, and I liked how Rocky managed to coach him through it and even helped him pass the eye test. What looked like Adonis, one of Adonis's eyes got swollen shut from the beating he was taking and all that jazz. So yeah, the fights were definitely great. Probably some of the best in the Rocky series, I'd argue. Barring 6, whenever I see that one.
You ain't living that down for a long time. Mike, did you have another question?
I'm sure. I mean, it's a minor question, but what do you think of Tessa Thompson's character in this one?
Well, this is the first time I had ever seen Tessa Thompson in a film, and I really, really liked her. She made a hell of a good first impression. I liked how she wasn't just there to be Adonis's love interest, and she had her own goals, her own minor story going on with her own future. And heck, I wouldn't mind seeing a movie solely focused on her. Actually, I really love the first song we heard her sing, which I think was called "Grip" or something, where Adonis goes into that nightclub and hears her singing it, and I thought, damn, I could listen to this on repeat forever if I wanted to. It was a good use of her as a character, so I'm hoping they keep it up in Creed 2. I hope she doesn't get demoted to just designated love interest in that one.
Yeah. What do you think of Tony Little Duke Burton? I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
you don't get asked anymore. All right, I'm done. I don't have another question, so you're up. You're all safe, Colton. So, Mike, here we come for you. Chris, okay. What is your first question for Mike?
Dreams. What it that really strikes you on a personal level about this movie? What appeals it, draws it to you on a personal level?
Well, I'm not the biggest sports fan, as most of you probably already know. And in fact, I'm not really all that crazy about baseball. I'm rooting for the Red Sox, but I don't really follow it. But what makes
no
beat me to it, cool.
No Yankee piece of shit makes fun of my sock when they're kicking some ass right now.
Oh yeah,
continue, Mike.
Exactly how many games are the Yankees back right now?
I think like 8.5 or 9.5, somewhere around there. It ain't over till it's over, but it ain't looking good for them right now. Anyway, continue, Mike.
But what really strikes me about this one is it's not so much about. I mean, it is about baseball, but at the same time, it's not really about baseball. It's more about family and family connections and the connections you have with something that you love. And I mean, the way the film culminates. I don't know if I should give spoilers for a 20, 30-year-old movie.
Believe it or not, I have not seen this film in its entirety, and I keep meaning to, just haven't gotten around to it. So
I do.
Minimum, please.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. The culmination of everything, where he learns kind of the truth about if you build it, he will come, and all those. It packs such an emotional impact for me, and the way he finds the connections that he does. It touches an emotional chord on me that every time I watch it, every single time, I know it's coming. I know I can quote that final scene, but every time it comes, I'm still a blubbering mess because it packs that emotional connection in me that I always get surprised by.
Okay.
So that's why it's my favorite.
Yes, and it's a riveting ending.
Yeah.
All right, Colton, what is your first question?
I'm not quite sure what to ask. Actually, can you come back to me? Sorry, I've never seen this movie, so it feels like I probably covered anything I could have thought of. I thought, oh crap, I have to think of something else. So.
All right. So Mike, I'm not sure if as you put it, there's not much. Even though it is like a baseball movie, there's not much to it. But what did you think about like the actual baseball activity that was going on? And based on what you know about the main players of the Black Sox scandal, do you think they were handled well?
I thought they were handled phenomenally well. I mean, they do go into that, and there's a moment where when Kevin Costner, his character, and Ray Liotta playing Shoeless Joe, they do talk about it, and he was saying that basically he was saying that he took the money, yeah, but there has never been any proof that he didn't try to lose that game. He played one of his best games ever in that. But I mean, he goes like, back then the owners were making all the money, and were paying.
Comiskey was a penny pincher. I know that.
Yeah, they were paying they were paying the players nothing. So he needed the money. So he took the money, but that didn't mean he threw the game. And so they gave him a very, very sympathetic and very believable story to that. And the way he said, like he brings all those players in because they just wanted to play the game again. They love the game, and that was what was most important to them. The fact that they could play again. And that's what really, I mean, again, not the biggest baseball fan, but that was a really great moment. And just that those lines were very well written. This is actually one of the best written baseball movies I've ever seen, honestly. I'm just checking to see who actually did write it. The music is phenomenal in this one.
James Horner.
Yeah, is some of his best stuff. Doesn't really say who wrote it. Oh wait, no, Phil Alden Robbins. So it was actually written by the director. Makes sense.
All right, Colton, have you had time to think of one?
Okay, it's possible that Mike might have just actually answered this question, but what?
Psychic.
What scene in this movie would you say solidified it as your favorite sports film?
The finale, the climax of it. There's just something. There was something just so pure and raw and emotional about it. Like I said, the connection that Kevin Costner's character makes. It's. When I first saw it, I didn't see it coming. And it hit me really, really strongly. So much so that it still comes back every single time I watch it.
Okay.
Some people would go ahead, Colton.
It kind of makes me want to go out and see it now.
I would recommend it.
Yeah, some people would compare it to a religious experience, especially like Rockies.
I mean, they do kind of make that comparison in the movie itself. They kind of make
faith.
Faith, and that baseball is kind of, it can be a religious experience type thing.
All right, Chris, did you have another question?
In terms of looking at his body of work, many performances he's given throughout his career, and Kevin Costner, the performances that he gives in this film, where do you rank it in terms of?
For me, it's at the top, if not in his top 3. I mean, Kevin Costner has made some really crappy movies. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean,
The Postman.
I've stayed clear of The Postman.
Waterworld.
Waterworld. He was not good in Waterworld. The movie itself has some entertainment value to it, a little bit.
He gave us The Untouchables, though.
Yeah,
okay. Yes.
Untouchables. Yes. Elliot Ness.
Yeah.
Robin Hood Thieves.
And I'm not gonna lie, I love 13 Days, and I even like him in it, even though his Boston accent is questionable at best. Oh, Paul, they actually do go to Fenway Park in this.
Yes, I do know that. He goes with Darth Vader, so that's pretty awesome.
James Earl Jones, yeah. James Earl Jones is fantastic in this movie, especially when you the first scene where you see him.
He's all angry. He's like, where'd you come?
He is angry as F in that one. It's great. But and there's some interaction and some play, some scenes back and forth between those two that are just fantastic. But dang, I forgot the question.
I mean,
go ahead.
the performances of Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Oh yeah. So yeah, I would say it's absolutely in his top 5. I personally would put it near number 1, if not the number 1 spot, at least for me. Some people may prefer Dances with Wolves. Yeah, that movie was okay. But I love this one mainly because he's just kind of playing just a normal Joe Schmo guy that amazing things start happening to. And he just kind of rolls with it. He doesn't let.
It kind of like it reminds me of a film Spielberg would make, or even Frank Capra would make.
This movie is Frank Capra is like all over this movie, even though it's not a Frank Capra movie. But it absolutely has that feel to it. But
he does kind of remind me of Gary Cooper in a sense. Just a whole portrayal.
You are not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah, I love him in this movie. I really do. Him and Amy Madigan as his wife. Oh, those two are just dynamic as all get out.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Great.
All right, Colton, did you have another question?
No, that about covers it for me.
Okay. I actually do have one last question for Mike. Next time we meet up, you want to have a catch?
I suck at baseball. I haven't played baseball since I was in Little League because while playing out in the driveway, my mom beamed a ball off my forehead, and I never really kind of gotten over that. So we can watch this movie. We can watch this movie all the time, but we're probably not going to be having too many to catch.
It's now that you said that, the way your head turned is already, the light made it look like you had a bump on your forehead.
Oh, it was right about here, yeah. Oh, and also Burt Lancaster is fantastic. This was his last.
I would say this is his last movie.
Yeah, this was his last film role, and he is just. It's a small role, but it's a very important role, and it's fantastic.
He goes into the cornfields as the older Archie Grant.
I
won't say no. Okay. Damn it.
All right, Mike. Well done. Okay,
Thank you.
So here I am. I'm up. So, Chris, what is your first question?
Why don't you just let this piece of crap? I'm just kidding.
Why have to remove you from hanging out?
No.
Go ahead, Colton. I mean, I won't.
No.
Okay, I'll give you one more chance, Chris.
Okay. What makes this movie stand out to you as your? Why of all the movies, of all sports movies, why is this your favorite?
Aside from the fact that I am an obsessive baseball junkie, I think while we watch this insane rant, I think aside from that fact, a part of the reason why I love this movie so much is that it is such a wonderful. It is a wonderful coming of age movie. The kids are just so fun. They're so relatable. Their chemistry is fantastic. Yeah. And, it's one of the most quotable movies I've ever seen. Like, Casablanca is obviously the most quotable film of all time. But I would argue that this is up there, too. The scene, the line are just so memorable. And so it's got great humor. The heartfelt scenes are amazing. I mean, and you cannot deny the legacy of this film. I mean, this year marks the 25th anniversary, and Major League Baseball team, Minor League Baseball team, Little League team, all of them have had like some kind of celebration of this film. The cast of this film has gotten together so many times to celebrate the movie. Even some of like the big names in Major League Baseball, they've recreated some of the most famous scenes in this film. Like I've seen them recreate, the scene where Smalls tries to get over the fence for the first time. I've seen him recreate the campfire s'more scene. I mean, this movie has just such an impact on culture. And it's easy. Yeah, it's a very fun, enjoyable, heartfelt, comedic film that has such an incredible legacy. And that's why I love it. And I just love it. I'm obsessed with baseball. Mm-hmm. All right, Colton, what is your first question?
Okay, well, you just answered one of my other questions. So I was going to ask him, since we all, like the three of us have picked movies about, adults and all that jazz. I was going to ask, what is it about a movie about kids that makes it your definitive sports film? But you kind of addressed that. So I'll ask a different one, which is, it's been asked already, but what about the scenes of the actual sport of baseball being played in this movie? How do you think those are handled? Do you think they're exciting, or do you think this is one of those come with the story, skip the sport sort of stuff?
Well, I mean, the kids definitely they trained. You can tell they trained and choreographed. Like they knew what they were doing when they knew how to field their position. They knew how to hit. I mean, I wouldn't say these guys were like all-star level caliber in the few players in the making, but they knew how to play the game. It was convincing enough that they knew how to play the game and that they knew and they had fun doing it. So I thought for the game activity themselves were very good. Plus, I just get such an enjoyment out of them kicking the shit out of those little league jackasses. I mean, you just tell they crushed them. So that was just enjoyable.
Cool.
All right. Mike, what's your first question?
What did you think of Mr. Myrtle?
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
His character, baseball movie that James Earl Jones is in.
Yeah, his character and the kind of the arc of his character.
I mean, I thought it was. I mean, I starts off being this like really mysterious guy, like, oh wow, what is he really this mean? What's he like? He's a guy who raised this terrible beast that ate people, including children. What is this guy like? And to find out that he's this. I mean, not only is he blind, but he's such a great baseball fan, and he even comes to himself as a really good player. He played. I think they were trying to allude that he actually played in the major leagues with Babe Ruth, even though I know that's not true because black players weren't allowed at the time. But to make known just how much he loved baseball, you really believe that this guy had a passion for baseball, and I'm sure James Earl Jones does in real life, but he just made it sound totally like this guy knew baseball, he played baseball, he breathed baseball, and all the greats of yesteryear, and even today, they'll tell you, we breathe baseball, and he made that sound so believable. So I thought it was definitely an interest. It was a fun reveal to find out who this guy was.
Fair enough.
Chris, did you have another question?
Yes. This movie. I'm not going to do it. As I say,
too late. The chance now. Hey. You're done. You forfeit. Colton, what's your question?
My question is actually I don't have any more. I think you've about covered it.
Okay, Mike, what is do you have one more question?
I do.
Okay.
Wendy Peppercorn.
That girl is fine. I tell you, she sitting her in that lifeguard uniform. My goodness gracious, I don't blame Squints one bit for wanting to get under those pants. And he did later on when he grew up, as if you recall correctly. He actually did get under her pants. 9 times.
I do have like one legitimate question, one final one. What did you have? Basically the core of the movie, I think, at least for me, is the relationship between Benny and Smalls.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that one?
I think, the old saying, you can't choose your family. That's really true. But the one thing you can choose are your friends. And if you make enough really, really good friends, they can turn into a family. And, I forgive me for quoting the Lego Batman movie, but friends are the family you can choose. And I think this film really showed just the importance of what one good friend can do for you, the impact that they can have on your life, on a person's life. Just all it takes is just one good friend to be by your side. And, there's not much you can't do as long as you have that. So I think their friendship, their relationship is a prime example of that. And that really is one thing I wish for, like, every decent, hardworking person out there. The one thing I always hope they have is they have like that one good friend who's there with them. Even if it's just one, all it takes.
And Paul, you never have to apologize for quoting a Lego Batman.
It's a great movie, man.
Okay, then I will never. If I ever quote it again, I won't apologize ahead of time. All right, guys. So that is going to wrap up our show. This was a lot of fun. I had a good time talking about these films. Chris, it was a pleasure having you here.
It's great. It's great.
Maybe, yeah.
It's great to be here as usual.
Colton, it was a pleasure having you here.
Well, it's great to be here. I really enjoyed this topic and hearing about Sandlot, Field of Dreams. Never saw the Sandlot either. Are you really surprised, Paul?
Just when I thought you can't surprise me anymore, like you are the opposite of Caleb. Like, he would be so ashamed of you right now. Take it and run. Take it and run. Seriously, watch the fucking Sandlot.
Well, you made me want to take a look at it, actually. You've talked it up nicely. Yeah.
Skip the sequel. You don't need to see those. But the first one, yes.
I'll keep that in mind.
And Mike, it was a pleasure having you here as well.
Yeah, always a pleasure. And if you build it, you will come.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
Touche, sir. Touche.
No Adrian.
Remember that one time when Tiny Toon Adventures parodied Field of Dreams? Actually, they parodied everything, but that was...
yeah. All right, guys. So we will see you next week for another episode of Nerds United 1. Don't know what that's going to be yet. And yeah, we will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.